Well, good evening, Chapter 288. I don't know where you guys are, but didn't you hear the governor open the bars? So here we are at Keith's. Keith's bar is open. And I don't know where you guys are. You didn't get the word? Everybody's staying home? Nobody's coming to Keith's? Well, just kidding. We're using Keith's hangar to do the broadcast tonight. And please don't come. Knock on the door. You'll wake us up. Anyway, welcome. And good to see you all again. Well, I can't see you, but you can see me. So Matt's going to change the camera for me a little bit, and we'll get going. Most of you recognize these surroundings, I'm sure. We've been here before. For some of you new members, you may not recognize the surroundings. We're inside Keith's hangar. This is where we used to do all of our briefings. We decided to do it in here tonight because I want to use my little laser pointer to make some points on the wall. So again, welcome to the chapter. Remember this? When we used to come to Keith's hangar, 100 of us, 150 of us, we all get together, we all socialized, we all loved it. Hopefully someday we can get back to that. This is actually the 6th time we've done this virtual broadcast. So fortunately we have the World Wide Web, and I do know of some people that are watching it from a distance, so we are staying together somewhat that way. I know some people in Maine, Indiana, Colorado, maybe even Goofy over in the UK. Who knows? So that was 5 years ago. I'll be glad when we can get together and socialize again like we used to do. Since I'm in Keith's hangar, turn off your cell phones, please, so it doesn't bother me. Just kidding. I can't hear them if they ring. I got to say thanks to Matt Simmons and Dave Baldwin. This is what it looks like when we're in Dave's hangar. A little different tonight, but without these two guys, this just wouldn't happen. So really appreciate Matt and Dave for all the help they've given me along the way. Tonight's agenda, we've got the usual chapter happenings, virtual tour. We got some input from that. And we try to do a semi-annual safety briefing or safety talk, so I'm going to cover some of the safety items that are recurring, and we'd like to just get everybody up on the same page. So you're going to have to listen to me all night, I guess. I'd like to say thanks to and welcome to some of the new members who have signed up this summer. There's one name missing, John Poe. John, I apologize for your name not being up there. I just remember that John signed up, I think back March or April. So Scott, Lewis, Sean, John, and Norman, you're all welcome to Chapter 288. We're glad to have you. Hopefully we can start getting together and socializing again like we love to do. So anybody who's not an EAA member who's watching this, you're invited to watch. We'd love to have you watch. See what we do at EAA 288. Maybe you'll join us up sometime. Join with us sometime. But anyway, welcome to the broadcast. The calendar, I guess the important thing on the calendar, I've been announcing the celebration of life for Dennis and Bonnie was going to take place on October 10th at the Country Club. That's been changed now. It's now going to be a virtual broadcast. I'll have more on that, a virtual meeting rather. I'll have more on that shortly. Sun and Fun is going to have a festival in December. The Land Aviation Showcase has been moved to January. And if you look forward into March, you've got the Gainesville Armed Services Day. So as far as Dennis and Bonnie's virtual memorial service, you need to sign up for the RSVP. RSVP on the website, your email address, Becca is going to send everyone who signed up an email with instructions how to log in and participate in the virtual memorial service. So that's about 3 weeks away. Check your emails, make sure you signed up. Oops. So if you look on the sign-up page now, it says, I'm sorry. If you look on the sign-up page now, it says we've gone viral. When you RSVP, it still wants to know how many people are attending, so just put in 1 or 2. I think that was when she was going to reserve the country club. She needed to know how many people are coming. So this is all I know at this time. It's going to be virtual. She's going to use the email address that you provide to send out the instructions. So that's the big change, I guess, from the last meeting we had. The Sun and Fun, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but December 4th and 5th, they have a holiday flying and car festival show. I need a little bit of a drum roll here because admissions and aircraft parking are free. So I know that'll get a lot of us down there. It should be a lot of fun. I believe that's the week before the toy parade, so it shouldn't conflict with what we have going on here in the chapter in the creek. That's the invitation sheet, Flying Festival, Sun and Fun at the Expo campus, a 2-day event, and again, it's free, so we'll probably get a lot of people to get together. I believe the headquarters EAA top, I think Jack Pelton's going to be there, Charlie Becker's going to be there, the president of AOPA is going to be there, so there'll be a lot of festivities going on. And that's in March, the Gator flying over at Gainesville. Again, they've got a lot going on over there. So that's on the calendar, a few things to look forward to. I want to say a big congratulations to our 2020 race scholar, Brendan Wixon. Brendan did his first solo on September 4th, a couple of weeks ago. He's going along great. Things are going good for him up there. He's flying out of Daytona. And that's Craig Cousins. Craig is the race scholar coordinator, so he gets the privilege of cutting off Brendan's shirt. And we figured, why not for an EAA broadcast? You got a RV-8 in the background, a Tiger in the background, and now a Stinson in the background. So that's Brendan, big first solo smile, cut the shirt off, and the masked man again is Craig. Craig does a lot of work as the coordinator. They've had a change in personnel at headquarters, so things are a little garbled up right now, but Craig is staying on top of it. So congratulations, Brendan. The way he's going, I would guess in a couple of months he'll be a private pilot. So that's great. We're glad to hear that. Simulator, Jack Morey has got that thing purring like a kitten. If you get some time and you want to fly the sim, contact Jack or one of us who is on the website. It's really working well. There's about 8 or 10 instructors who can instruct in it. It's a great simulator, and again, Jack's doing a great job with that. Young Eagles. We will probably not have a large Young Eagle event where we invite 30 or 40 kids to come down and a dozen or so pilots to fly, but you can still do individual flights. You can log in. If you need help, Jim Clark is the Young Eagles coordinator here. If you need some help with that, you can log into the website, sign everybody up. It makes it really easy. All the paperwork is done for you. It's submitted real easy. So if you have somebody, a nephew or niece, or somebody you know from church or school, and you want to take them for a Young Eagles ride, please go do it. There's nothing like that. We've all experienced that taking someone up for the first time and having them say, wow, this is really cool. We've all been there, and let's try to do it for our youth. As I said, I don't believe we'll have a large event. One of our sister chapters tried to have a large event. They had a lot of kids sign up for it, but only 3 pilots. So while the COVID thing is going on, I don't think we will not schedule a large event. There's our website. Rick's doing a great job with that. You can go on EAA288.org. All the events that are going on, we will post information about Dennis and Bonnie's memorial service if we get more information. There's lots of links to the calendar, aviation info, the builder's log. You can sign up, become a new member, pay your dues. It's all available there on the website. This has become pretty popular. We started this at the first virtual meeting to go around and just say, you know, what's in your hangar? What's in your garage? What's in your living room? What is it you guys are working on out there? So we kind of streamed it down and realized that those things are really toy boxes. So we talk, what's in your toy box? And I've asked for people to submit non-aviation type things. What is it that you guys are working on with your talent? So we have a couple of those submissions this month rather. So we have a new member, John Cronin. Excuse me. He says he loves to rescue and restore broken or worn-out items, old toys, anything old I like to restore. So I'm going to ask John if he can restore me a little bit, maybe make me youthful again. He said, all items are given away. It's just a hobby. Plus, seeing a child with a brand new all-metal toy is priceless. So this is some of John's handiwork. Starts with what's on the left over there, makes it on the right. Now, probably a lot of us built a lot of virtual highways in sandboxes when we were younger with toys just like this. So great job restoring that. There's another one that he restored. And John also goes around to some of the factories. Back in the 30s and 40s, a lot of these factories used these pallets on wheels to move around heavy items, long before we had forklift trucks. So he took the one on the left and he created a beautiful coffee table out of it like that. So nice work, John. And John's a snowbird. He'll be back in the chapter area in October. Joe Friend, everybody knows who Joe Friend is. We featured his 1/6 scale camel, I think in April. At that time it was under construction. Well, here it is, ready for the first flight. And he's also very handy. He built a dollhouse for his great-granddaughter. So a lot of work involved in doing that as well. And Joe says you can beat the smile on the first flight. It's the first big smile from his great-granddaughter. So we know what it's like to take somebody for a ride for their first flight. Joe, of course, just loves this. That's his great-granddaughter, first smile when she sees the dollhouse that Joe built for her. So nice work on that as well, Joe. The last meeting we talked about having an RV14 builders group, and I didn't get a lot of response to that, but one of the responses I did get was, why just RV14? Why not start a type group? So if there's somebody out there that's interested, send me your name, email, and we will start a group for like a Tiger or an SX group or whatever we happen to have, if you want to connect with other people who have similar type aircraft. It's just a way of sharing information. So if you're interested in doing that, send an email to me. I'll send it to Rick Weiss and we'll get it done. This again was featured in the April virtual meeting. Chris Martin is building a Europa XS monowheel. Now that's not his airplane. That was a picture that he provided back in April of what the final version should look like. So he's been working on it a lot. He's got it to the point where, hold on a second. He's going to run the engine. So I guess a couple days critical when you build an airplane. First flight, first time you run the engine. So that mono wheel now has 6 wheels. But just to be sure, the tail is tied to his golf cart. So first engine start, the Rotax engine. Craig Cousins provided this, and off it goes. So again, don't worry, the airplane is tied down. The tail is tied. So the engine started, everything's going fine with that. He's moved on now, he put the wings on it, and I believe he's been taxiing around. This is all very new. In the last 2 or 3 days, I got these pictures. So he's been working hard on that. That's what it looks like on the wheels with the wings on and on the wheels. His panel, he said he did it very Spartan on purpose. One of the reasons was to keep the cost down. And the other reason is he stares at a computer screen all day long. So he doesn't want to stare at a computer screen in his airplane. So that's the inside of the monowheel. Craig Cousins sent this picture. He's working on his RV14. He got a new engine from Lycoming. And his question is, what do you notice about the oil return hose clamps? There's a quicker view. Now this is from the factory. Craig says those clamps are too big and they really are a knuckle buster when you reach down there. Interesting that this should come up about a hose clamp. About 3 years ago, I was flying a 182 for the Civil Air Patrol. Had about 10 hours on a overhauled engine by Lycoming, and one of the oil return lines on the top of the cylinder came off. So we were dripping oil all over the exhaust and making a mess on the ramp as we taxied in, because from the cockpit we had no idea what was going on. So I don't know what it is about oil return lines, but probably a good idea to check both ends of them on a brand new engine. Speaking of Craig, if you remember, he had a living room project going on, his RV14, and his wife was giving him lots of help back then in building it. Well, nothing's changed. There she is again. I don't know who's going to get credit for the 51%, But obviously, Craig is progressing nicely on his airplane. The canopy is in, the engine's in, and he's got his wife doing most of the work. I wanted to kind of quickly review the summer that we've had as far as accomplishments and first flights. This goes back to December. John Carpenter, first flight on his Super Cub. Tom Cody, first flight on his Panther. Greg Ryan, restoration of his T-34. Ted and Li Feng Chang, completion, first flight of his RV-10. If you missed the broadcast before, it took Ted about 18 months from the time he started to the time he had 40 hours on the airplane. So great job on building that airplane. Doug Gallman restored his Stinson 108. And then Keith Moser completed the Zenith CH-801. He's flown that. And after he gets to 40 hours on it, Keith intends to donate it to a missionary hospital in Africa. So congratulations to all you first flight folks. I just wanted to do a little review of what's been going on this summer. So that's us, EAA, the Spirit of Aviation. Aviation, Education, Social. That's what EAA is all about. So a lot of accomplishments, a lot of good things going on. I'm going to change hats now and get into the safety part of this that we want to talk about. And even though we're going to talk about some things at Spruce Creek, for you folk, our friends at Massey, DeLand, at other airports, a lot of these procedures are going to apply to you. So ask yourself some of the questions. Have you done what Spruce Creek has done? What would happen if you had an accident at Spruce Creek? So the first thing I want to talk about is these fireboxes that we have along the airport. There's 5 of them. That's the contents. Some fire extinguishers, an axe to break a canopy, a bag of tools that has a seatbelt cutter in them. So we have these located on the airport. If there is an accident, we are the first responders. It took about 12 minutes for the fire department to arrive when we had the accident up by the approach end of runway 24. John Ferguson was on the phone for 12 minutes. And by the time the fire trucks arrived, the people were out of the airplane. They were safely away from it because the people at the creek responded by getting this equipment, helping them get out of the airplane. So that 12 minutes saved a couple of lives. So if you are one of the first ones to see something, go get this stuff. Just go get it. Leave the door open so someone else knows that one's empty, and then do as much as you can to help out. These boxes are located, as you see, around the airport. There's 4 on the south side of the runway and 1 on the north side of the runway. There's defibrillators. There's 3 of them, 1 here in Keith's hangar, at the downwind, and at the country club there's a defibrillator. The addresses are so important. When you call 911, if you need to call 911, they will not dispatch without an address. If you tell them to come to Spruce Creek Airport or you tell them to come to Massey Airport, they don't know what to do. You need to give them an address. So there's some points on the airport that are important. 2 Lindy Loop is down here. 1 Cessna Boulevard right about here. 2 Beach Boulevard is just about at the fuel farm. And then 98 Lindy Loop. If you are the first one to call 911 due to an accident, it's very important that you give them an address. If you can't remember any of these, and I can't, the downwind is 100 Cessna Boulevard. So call dispatch, tell them to come to 100 Cessna Boulevard. That's going to get them right there. If you have to post somebody here and point to where to go after that, but at least when you give them an address, they'll be on their way. In addition to the fireboxes that we have a lot of people now. There's Chad and Lori with their golf cart. They have a fire extinguisher here, an axe back here with a little point on it that could break a canopy. So lots of people have this on their golf carts now. So again, at Massey, do you have something like this? Do you have a crash program or a recovery program? Do you know what address you dispatch to? So all good things to know. I'm going to move on to a different topic now, and I call it the Great Debate, but don't get too excited. This isn't the Great Debate I'm talking about. The great debate I'm talking about is to straight in or not to straight in. So let's talk about the traffic pattern a little bit. But again, this is what I consider the great debate, because probably for 50 years this has been debated at every airport, every non-towered airport in the country. What does the FAA say about straight-in approaches? This is from FAA Advisory Circular 90-66 Bravo. Its title is Operations in Non-Towered Airports. And it says the FAA encourages to use the standard traffic pattern when arriving or departing. However, there are occasions where a pilot can choose to execute a straight-in approach for landing when not intending to enter the traffic pattern, such as on a visual approach or the termination of an instrument approach. However, you don't have to be on an instrument approach. You can choose, a pilot can choose to make a straight-in approach. However, again, pilots should clearly communicate on the CTAF and coordinate maneuvering for an execution of a landing with other traffic so as not to disrupt the flow of other aircraft. Therefore, pilots operating in the traffic pattern should be alert at all times to aircraft executing straight-in landings, particularly when flying a base leg. I learned to fly over 50 years ago at a non-towered airport. My instructor always had me roll wings level on base, look out to the right. Is there anybody on final? So I know even after reading this, there are people here who really don't like straight-in approaches. However, there are occasions when they work. And I'll show you a couple. Again, the key to any approach or any traffic pattern is communications. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. This is a procedure advisor from ForeFlight. If you have a destination, and I'll tell you about this one in a minute, and you have an inbound route, it will help you enter the traffic pattern. So all of the pictures that I'm showing you, I didn't charter. I asked ForeFlight to do it for me. So I should have put one more slide. You have your destination, your flight plan tab, and there's a button that says procedure. You might find that button for procedure to find an instrument procedure, but you can also find this procedure advisor. After you select the runway, here are your choices. Straight in. Left traffic 45, cross midfield teardrop, cross midfield direct. Right traffic 45, midfield teardrop, midfield direct. Once you make one of these selections, the button will show up down here and you can add it to the map. So I chose this airport, this MacDill Air Force Base Auxiliary, for two reasons, to make an example of this. One reason is there's no Class Charlie or Bravo airspace that's restricting it. Yeah, it's in a restricted area. We'll just pretend the restricted area is cold. Also, it has a similar runway to what we have at Spruce Creek. That's 5 and 2-3, but it's close enough to be 6 and 2-4. So, again, I didn't do any of this. If you're coming in from up here, from the northeast, so to speak, and you're going to make a landing on runway 6, here's how you enter the pattern. Come to the 45 point, 45 midfield, downwind, base, final. Now you might say, well, I'm right here, why don't I just go straight into the downwind? No. There is no straight into the downwind entry. You see a lot of people coming back from Umatilla, straight into the downwind, coming to the creek on 2-4. This is the FAA's recommended pattern entry from that position. On runway, if you're landing on 2-4, from about the same position, midfield crosswind, left turn, downwind, base, final. When I learned to fly, we used to fly the downwinds, or rather the crosswinds, way out here, like this. But if you look at this, you have a Learjet or a high-performance airplane taking off, they're going to be at 1,000 feet out in here. So the best place to be is right over midfield, right over midfield. Now, check the airport you're flying into. This is not recommended at the land. And obviously, the meat missiles or those people that are jumping out of airplanes at the land, you really don't want to overfly the land. So you need to understand the airport you're flying into. But this is the standard traffic pattern entry, midfield crosswind. So here's this. Coming in from the northeast, straight into 2-4. Again, I didn't do this. ForeFlight did it for me using the FAA standards. This just happens to be about 3.3 miles where they're showing to turn final, right there. What's significant about 3.3 miles? 300-foot glide path, 1,000 feet. At 3.3 miles, you should be about 1,000 feet. So if you're flying a normal glide path, 3 to 1, that's at 3.3 miles, which is right there, you should be at 1,000 feet, and from there on down, it's a standard 3-degree glide path. So let's take it up to Spruce Creek now. Like I said, I wanted to use this airport as an example because there's no airspace restricting us. This is the other one, which is really not practical, but the overhead teardrop. If you were coming overhead like this, midfield, then you make a right turn, join the 45 again, it ends up at the same 45. This isn't practical here at Spruce Creek because it's designed to overfly 500 feet above the pattern altitude, which would be 1,500, which we all know would be inside the Class Charlie. So I'm not going to bring this one up again because it's just not practical. Coming back from Umatilla, as I said earlier at the other airport, this is the way it's done. Coming from here straight into the downwind is not a recommended pattern entry. Out to the 45, downwind base final. That's really a weird entry. That's Umatilla to runway 6. But again, it's the midfield crosswind. It just seems a little strange out here, but you should be above any traffic out here. Now, what about this? Umatilla, 3.3 mile final, straight in. Work it out with other people who are in the traffic pattern. So these are all choices the pilot can make. Keep it standard. Keep on the radio. Tell us what you're doing. I'll tell you what I'm doing. This one's very impractical. This is a tank arrival. This would be the tank to runway 6. Now, with the airspace here, the surface area, this is, unless you're talking a Daytona approach, that's just unable. What about that? Again, 3.3 mile final, 1,000 feet right here, 3.3 mile final. Runway 24, right on the edge of the Class Charlie, midfield crosswind, downwind base final. That's the recommended pattern entry for the creek coming from the tank to runway 24. Coming in from the beach, I didn't draw this, but what I wanted to illustrate was the runway 24 coming in from the beach just missed the Class Charlie. Now, when ForeFlight does this for you, they don't take into account, for instance here, they don't take into account the airspace. They don't take this into account. They take into account it's a 45 entry. I've seen some people try to come down here and do this, like this, and like this. Now, in my former life as an air traffic controller, the worst thing can happen is head-on traffic at the same altitude. That would probably why I lost all my hair. So if you do that right in here, what are you at? You're head-on to opposite direction traffic, and you're both at 1,000 feet. So again, ForeFlight does not take into account airspace. The pilot's got to do that. So back to the beach arrival, coming in from the beach. This ForeFlight did this, just missed the Class Delta here, but that's quite random. So down to the 45 point. Again, if you're going to runway 6, impractical unless you're talking to Daytona approach. Some people will try to come in like this, enter the downwind, but remember, this downwind straight in is really not a recommended entry. That's another way of coming to runway 6, midfield crosswind. You miss Daytona, you miss New Smyrna. What about this? Again, straight in from the beach. Just barely nick the airspace here. You got to offset left just a little bit. But the same theory. 3.3 mile final at 1,000 feet, announcing your positions. That's probably the most often used recovery into the creek. I personally like to fly to the racetrack in New Smyrna, right here. I think when I come up to the creek, it just gives me a great view of what's going on. So if you're going on runway 6, the midfield crosswind, obviously to 24, it's the 45. Everything works out well. And this is another choice. Turn out to the 3-mile final, 1,000 feet, straight in. Again, all of this works, whether you're straight in, crosswind, upwind, whatever it may be, it all works because of communications. Self-announce your communications. So, those procedures I showed you just now were from the FAA, from the AIM, lots of sources like that. Now, unknowns to a lot of pilots who fly into here, we have our own procedures. Spruce Creek Airport procedures, been around a long time. I'm talking about this one. First of all, if you look in the AIM, you will not find the definition of initial. You will not find the definition of brake. What you can find is a 360 overhead, which kind of describes what we do. This diagram's been around a long time. If you look, formation aircraft begin the approach at the initial point. Again, nowhere in the AIM is there a word initial. 1 to 3 miles out, aligned with runway at traffic pattern altitude. So, okay, that's all that's on the picture in our procedures. I added a few things. How about crosswind entry at traffic pattern altitude? How about somebody in closed traffic climbing to traffic pattern altitude? And then you got the 45 at pattern altitude. Remind you of a Saturday morning? I remember a Saturday morning a while back where we had all this going on and we were flying Young Eagles. So there's a lot going on in our traffic pattern. Now, who has the right of way? Don't all answer at once. Nobody. We've got to work this out. Amongst our pilots, amongst us, we have got to work out these procedures. It works. Sometimes the 360 overheads, they shouldn't be doing it, and I've actually had them say, no, we won't do it, we'll just go individual flights. If you're on downwind, you can extend, maybe make a 360 away from it. The real problem is the pilots who fly in and out of here who are not familiar with this. They're not familiar with the terminology, initial, brake. Also, if you fly to Umatilla or Palatka and we want to do a 360 overhead, those pilots are not familiar with what goes on down here, what we really mean by that. So again, I ask anybody to find the definition of initial and brake in the AIM. I did find this. This is in a pilot controller glossary. The overhead maneuver. Talks a lot about it, but I'm just going to skip down to here. The pattern usually specifies radio contact, the speed to be maintained, initial approach 3 to 5 miles, elliptical pattern, 20-degree turns, a break point, direction of turns, and altitude at least 500 feet above the conventional pattern. We don't do that here. 500 feet above the conventional pattern puts us into the class Charlie. So again, be aware of what that looks like to a person who's never flown in here before. What that sounds like. It's got to be extremely confusing to pilots who have never flown in here. Now, pilots who fly in here are supposed to be briefed by whoever invited them in here and have looked at this. This picture is not in the book. I put all those yellow arrows on there. Let's talk about communications on CTAF. Now again, this is the FAA document. FAA document about CTAF. A couple of years ago, the FAA published the non-towered airport advisory circular 9066 Bravo. This subject of non-towered airports had not been visited in about 20 years. So in 2018, they published the first version. There was a change that was made in 2019, in February. I'm going to show both versions, or at least part of them. This is interesting. Maintain a sterile cockpit. That's a phrase that's come up in the last 15, 20 years. I think most people know what that means, is you don't You don't do anything except fly the airplane and pay attention to the important things when you're close to an airport or below 10,000 on a large airplane. Interesting here, though, that sign of the times. Refrain from using a mobile phone or texting. Now, in Florida, it's against a lot of text while you're driving. I don't know if it's against a lot of text while you're flying, but it sure doesn't make a lot of sense to be texting while you're flying, especially in the vicinity of an airport. Monitor the radio, use the airport diagram, avoid distractions, especially, on the ground here. There's a lot of distractions on the ground. This is not a normal airport for taxiing. There's people, golf carts, dogs, bicycles, people running across the runway. Using aircraft lights, absolutely. Lights on all the time, on the ground, in the air. Use those lights to make yourself visible and minimize your head-down activities. Some additional measures should also be taken flying at a non-towered airport. Always monitor and transmit on the CTAF frequency, except those airplanes that don't have radios. There are a few of those out there that don't have radios. Pilots should use published CTAF to self-announce position and intentions. Self-announce. That's not saying, you're not saying, this is my airspace, get out of the way. I'm announcing that I'm on downwind and I own this downwind. Think of it like using a directional light in your car. You are announcing to the people in the other cars that you're going to turn left or right. I think some people tend to think that once you announce your position that it's yours, you own it. Not true. They say within 10 miles of the airport. To me, that's kind of far out, especially with the CTAF congestion we have from other airports. But anyway, CTAF radio communications. In my other days, I used to teach ATC communications ground school, and it's very easy when you talk to ATC, who, where, what. Who are you calling, who are you, where are you, what do you want? What are your intentions? It's the same way with CTAF, with one minor wrinkle. Identify the airport, that's the first who. State your aircraft make, model, and call sign. You may also want to identify aircraft color. That's the second who. State your position. Where are you? What are your intentions? Who, where, what? And the fifth change on this is you say the who again, Spruce Creek Airport. So you say the name of the airport first, and you say the name of the airport last. This is the old version of the advisory circular, 2018. It says, you should not use paint schemes or color. That was 2018. 2019, change one, it says paint schemes and color or style descriptions may be added to the use of the aircraft's call sign and type, but should not replace the call sign and type. So they kind of got you there, but it makes more sense to me to say red and white tiger as opposed to 232 Charlie Papa. So they went from saying don't use your color of the airplane to you can use the color if you want to in 1 year. This is the old way of doing it, not Midwest Traffic Blue and White Twin Commander. This is the new way. Quote right out of the AC. Midwest Traffic Experimental Skybolt, so you've got the type. November 32 Delta Sierra, you got the call sign. Orange and white biplane, you've got the color and the kind of another distinguishing feature, it's a biplane, 10 miles northeast. I love it when somebody says, Spruce Creek, Tiger 2, Charlie Pop, 10 miles out. What in the world have you communicated when you do something like that? So again, you may want to identify your aircraft color. That is now allowable. It's encouraged. I think we've been doing it here for a long time. Here's one of my personal dislikes, I guess. When somebody says, hey, Spruce Creek Traffic, Tiger 2, Charlie Pop, I'm taking runway 24. I usually chime in and say, don't take it. I want to use it. I want to use it too. Because if you look up the definition of taking, it's a seizure of private property, or a substantial deprivation of the right to its free use. So you might think yeah, you're right, I am. But from the aim, the phraseology should be departing. Spruce Creek traffic, red and white Tiger, 2 Charlie Papa, departing runway 24 southwestbound. Not taking off. If you go back, I'm going to step back to a tower-controlled airport now. The phraseology at tower-controlled airports was changed after the ground collision on Tenerife. There was a lot of things that went wrong on that accident. One of the things that they thought might be confusing was at one point, the pilots are having a discussion in the cockpit on the KLM. But at one point they said to the tower, "We are at takeoff." And they had taxied down, back taxied, turned around, were in position to take off. It really didn't communicate to the tower that they were actually taking off. So the FAA, ICAO decided when you are number 1 for departure at a tower-controlled airport, you've done your run-up, you're ready to go, you change from ground to tower, you don't tell the tower you're ready for takeoff. You tell the tower you're ready for departure. The reason is, again, going back to Tenerife, they don't want that word takeoff on a tower control frequency unless it's always preceded by the words cleared for. So we should not be using the word takeoff at a tower-controlled airport. This is the phraseology at a non-towered airport, departing, not taking. So another one of my things, what the heck does it mean last call? I have no idea what that means, other than the fact it ties up valuable frequency time. Just a couple things that rubs John the wrong way, I guess. So a quick summary. Who are you calling? Who, where, what? Who are you calling? Who are you? Color, N number, biplane, something to identify your airplane. Where are you? Be specific. Don't say, we're 7 miles out. That tells the other pilot nothing. What are your intentions? Straight in, crosswind, downwind, full stop, touch and go, low approach. What is it you're going to do? Don't call on final if you're doing a 360 overhead. To me, a 3-mile final means there's an airplane 3 miles out at 1,000 feet descending. Not going to stay at traffic pattern altitude and make a 360 in a downwind. So when you think about how you communicate and how I communicate, what do you want me to know about you? We're both up there sharing the same sky. We're going for the same runway. What do you want me to know about you? And conversely, what do I want you to know about me? One of the things I want to know is, do you have me in sight? I had I wouldn't call it an incident, but a few days I was flying back in. I called in on a 45 for downwind 24 in the Tiger, and a faster airplane, it was a Bonanza. Bonanza called in 45, runway 24. I saw him on the ADS-B, he was behind me. I turned downwind, I report downwind, Bonanza reports downwind. I report base, Bonanza reports base. I report final, Bonanza reports final. Finally, I said to him, "Hey, Bonanza, do you have me in sight?" He says, "Yeah, tally-ho." So, okay, it would have been nice on downwind had he said, "Tiger in sight on number 2." I was uncomfortable that he was faster than I was, and I didn't know for sure that he had me in sight. So think about this. What do you want me to know about you when you're on the CTAF? Quick summary. Please, no road rage. No traffic pattern of CTAF tirades. Not the place to do it. Sometimes you get an incident of, I call it road rage, call it traffic pattern rage. Don't do it on the radio, please. Please don't do it on the radio. It's unprofessional, it ties up the frequency, and it probably puts a lot of stress on the 2 pilots that are involved. It's all about communications. Clear, concise, precise communications. So I'm sure that there are some of you out there who have some comments about what I just said for the last half hour or so. There's my email address, and that's, in case you don't know, that's a Tiger pilot. Oh, I know, that was a sick joke. So send me an email if you want to discuss something that I discussed, if you disagree or want to agree or have a question about what I just discussed. I think a lot of our traffic pattern issues can be corrected by standard procedures and standard communications. On September 22nd, EAA headquarters is going to have a webinar about making the impossible turn. I think I'd encourage all of you out there, if you're around next Tuesday at 7 Central, which will be 8 Eastern, tune into this webinar. This is a topic that probably doesn't get enough. I'd like to see what these experts say. Go on the EAA website. You can sign up. Again, you don't have to be a member, but I think this would be a really good webinar to attend. So anyway, just to sum up, check 288.org for chapter happenings. Next meeting is scheduled for October 15th of 2020. Send me some pictures and write-ups of your interesting toys. The bar is open. Just kidding, Keith. Don't worry about it. We're not going to drink your booze. Please put the chairs away. Clean up tomorrow at 9 o'clock sharp. Again, just clowning around. Just clowning around because we're not doing that. Anyway, for all of us in the chapter, fly safe. Look out for one another. Be safe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next month.